Hello there, fellow peasants. Today I'm going to be discussing with you my top 5 favorite television series of all time. I'm not usually a big watcher of TV shows. I mostly watch films. 90% of what I watch are films, but over the years, over my lifetime, I've come across TV shows and I've really liked them. And so these are my top 5. Number 5 is Frasier. Frasier is a comedy that's a spin-off of the sitcom Cheers. And so Frasier is basically a show about a psychologist who has a talk show in Seattle. He lives with his dad, and his dad has a caretaker, Daphne. And they're kind of hoity-toity. They're fancy. They're well-to-do. They're rich. Him and his brother Niles are super nerdy. They're into classical music. They're into collecting, high-end pieces of furniture. They're just really classy people. And so there's a lot of humor involved because the dad's not very classy that they live with. He has some busted-ass chair. And so I don't have any real specifics of the show. It is a sitcom. Each episode's different. There is an overarching story throughout the series, but you know how like the old sitcoms are. Old shows back in the 80s and 90s, it's not like today where there's like a story being told. Back then it was, every episode was a completely different story. And so, I really like Frasier. It's good stuff. I've never seen a bad episode of Frasier. Every episode is funny. So if you've never seen Frasier, I would recommend checking that out if you like comedies. Number 4 is The OC. I didn't know about this for the longest time. I'm not usually a fan of like teenage drama, high school stuff. When I was a kid, like junior high and high school, Dawson's Creek was really big. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Charmed. And so the OC was really big when I was in high school. I just never really got into it. I didn't care for that type of stuff. And then years later, my wife sat me down and we started watching the OC and I got sucked into it. And I'm like, wow, this is actually like really good. And so basically the OC is about this kid who grows up in Chino, which is like a bad neighborhood in the LA area. And he's in and out of correctional facilities. And a lawyer really kind of feels for him, his lawyer. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to take this kid home. So he takes the kid home. And, he starts living this life, like, because the lawyer's rich, the lawyer's wife is rich, because her dad is rich. They have some sort of a, what do you call it, construction or some sort of company, architect company, anyway. And so it's a nice story because you get this kid who's poor. He doesn't know what to do because now he's thrown into this situation where he's living in like a $4 million house. He's going to private schools. And sometimes his past comes back and mixes in with the new life that he has. Old girlfriends from the past come back. Or like his brother gets out of jail and comes back and raises some trouble. And even early on, Ryan, the kid who gets adopted, he's still used to living that rough life and making stupid decisions. And so he screws up a lot in the first few seasons of the show, because he can't behave himself. He just kind of grew up in a trashy ass, neighborhood and whatever, and just makes dumb decisions. But yeah. Really good show. You should check it out sometime. It was big when I was a teenager, way back in the day. And yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. Number 3 is Rain. Rain came out, I think, 2013, 2014. I'm not sure. It's a medieval show about Queen Mary of Scots. She's living over in France. She's set to marry the Dauphin over there. And Nostradamus is a character in this. This is not very historically accurate at all. The clothing's not historical. It's a CW drama. But it's really good. It's really entertaining. A lot of drama, a lot of people trying to court her, trying to date her. There's prophecy that her future husband's going to die. She sometimes runs off with other people. It's just a really good show, and I like that type of stuff. I like medieval fantasy type crap and court dramas. I like that type of stuff. So yeah, give it a try. The main actress is Adelaide Kane. Never seen her in anything else, I don't think, but she does a really good job. So yeah. Number 2, Vikings. I really love the show. Sat down a few years ago to watch it, and I just got sucked into it. I mean, it starts out with Ragnar Lothbrok. He's a farmer. He lives in this town there in Norway, and Kattegat, I think, is the town. Yeah, Kattegat, and he lives there in Kattegat. He's a farmer, and he kind of moves his way up to becoming the jarl of the town. Eventually, he kind of becomes king of. You might want to correct me on this if you've watched the show. But I think at some point, does he become the king of Norway? I can't remember. But anyway, basically the show starts off with the period where the Vikings haven't really moved out of Norway, really. They're kind of stuck up in the Scandinavian area. And he's like, look, I can read. I have a sundial or whatever he does, and he's like, I'll find new land. I know what to do. I know. And so he ends up finding England. They go to England. They pillage and raid and go into this monastery and kill a bunch of priests and shit. And so the rest of the show kind of like is them discovering new places, raiding, taking things back. There's a lot of people. There's a struggle for power. People wanting to kill him, take the throne. His own brother tries to screw him over in the show. His brother eventually says screw it, and I think he becomes like a prince of some sort in France at one point. So there's just a lot of backstabbing, a lot of dirty court politics, and people screwing each other over. Good battle scenes. The fight scenes in this are amazing. The storyline in this is great. The acting is top notch. I know it's not 100% historically accurate, but I don't really watch it for that. But yeah, Vikings is great. There's 6 seasons of it, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. Really good stuff. It's a whole. It's a very interesting world to be in when you watch it, because you're going back a few thousand years in time and checking this shit out, looking at the pagan rituals and the sacrifices, and the scenery is gorgeous in the show. The cinematography is excellent. But yeah, so that's number 2, Vikings, and number 1 is The Tudors, starring Jonathan Rhys Meyers. I did a video on this channel where I go more in depth about this show. The show is basically about the King Henry VIII once he is probably late 20s, early 30s. He's had several failed births with his wife, Catherine of Aragon. She can't produce a male son. I think she did once, but it died. And so Henry basically gets tired of it. He's tired of her. She's getting old. She's not producing a male heir. and he wants a divorce because he wants to marry the hot new thing, Anne Boleyn. That's at court. And so Henry breaks free from Rome, starts the Church of England. He becomes the head of the Church of England, and he grants himself his own divorce, and he marries Anne Boleyn. And so it just kind of goes throughout Henry's life from that point. You don't see much of young Henry, like in his teens or anything like that. It mostly starts at the point where he starts getting, unhappy with things. And so, the show is great. The writing is excellent. It's an interesting show because Henry is a fucking asshole, but at the same time you really like him, and sometimes you feel even bad for him when you watch the show. The cinematography is great, the costume design is great, and I would rate it high on historical accuracy. I've watched tons of Tudor documentaries, and so many times while I watch the documentaries, I'm like, oh, that was in the show, that was in the show, that was in the show. And so is it 100%? No, but it's pretty spot on. The things that Henry says and does and the times that they say he does, and the timeline is done really well, and they do use a lot of real historical accurate things from the medicines that Henry uses when the sweaty sickness comes to town. I don't think it gets better than this in terms of court drama or a drama in general. It's like Game of Thrones, but with no dragons and magical shit. It's great. It's good. It's good medieval fun. If you want more details on the show, you want to hear me talk about it more, there's a video on this channel where you can watch me talk about the Tudors. But other than that, guys, that's it. That's my top 5 shows of all time. Let me know your top 5 shows down below. And that's about it. Have a good one, guys. Peace out. Bye-bye.